2021 QFR reviews and should be sending out your draft tables for your balances and your expenditures. So look for that soon to review before we post the fee summary report for 2021. Quick update on the drop-off contamination project. We are glad that we got the funding approved from the controlling board to fund that project, although we're still waiting approval from our director. We have a meeting scheduled next week with her and are hoping to get the go-ahead to move forward with that project, which is will be implemented by the recycling partnership, assuming it goes forward. So look for some sort of application RFP process to be involved in that project. We'll be looking to fund, I think, about four or five communities for an intervention project similar to what we did with curbside in 2019 and 2020. One last thing is I was on a call with people from RRS and the Michigan Recycling Coalition. They've developed a tool that they've used called Making a Case for Recycling, and they're looking to know if there's any communities in Ohio that are looking to start up a curbside program. Not necessarily huge communities, but sort of the medium-sized communities. And they have a tool they've developed where you can plug in your numbers and get comparison of, depending on what you want your program to look like. You can put in numbers to look at whether it's going to be a dual stream, single stream, carts versus toters, adding food waste options, so you can get a good look at what the different numbers would be, at least like a ballpark estimates on what the cost would be in adding those different parts to your program. So just doing them a favor to see if we can get some people to try it out and to see what it looks like. And if you could, send me an email if you have any communities that are currently looking at implementing curbside soon. So that's all I got. Any questions? You can ask them now or put them in the chat.
Thank you, Matt. One last thing is that we're working kind of on a count of what kind of recycle right efforts are going on around the state. It's a collaboration between us and DEFA, and so we may be reaching out to solid waste districts just to find out which of those of you have those kinds of initiatives going on. So you might expect something from us here in the future. I'm sorry, I'm kind of trying to do two things at one time, and I've been told that multitasking is not a real thing. So I apologize if I seem distracted here and there. Let me see do we have Michelle Bowles? Is she on yet? Oh, there she is right now. Michelle, hi.
Hello.
Hi, Michelle, you got on at just the right time.
Great.
So I'm going to go on and turn it over to you for your SWATO updates. Are you ready, or do you need a minute now that I shocked you?
No, that's fine. My only SWATO update was that we did have a professional development training that Ohio We Pay was kind enough to put up on their website. And Ernie, I don't know if you can just put that in the chat, or I can send out the link later, but we do have that recording available.
Was that all you had, Michelle?
Yep, that's all I have right now.
Okay, well, that was easy enough. So next on the agenda, we have April Stevens, who is with our Recycling and Litter Prevention Grant Program, here to give you an update. I think we're getting close to the point of either announcing or releasing, so I'll let April go over and tell you where we are with that.
Yeah, thanks, Ernie. Actually, as probably quite a few of the attendees have learned. We have let them know. We haven't done a press release yet, but we have been releasing or sending out the grant agreements, and we let everybody know a week or two ago if they were selected for funding. So we are in the process of that, and I did put together a couple slides here. So again, I think we talked about this a few months ago, but we received 103 applications, totaling just over 7.5 million for this grant round. And I've got the breakdown of how those fell there. And then we were able to, again, this year, we were able to go to the State Controlling Board to ask for additional funding to fund the recycling and litter prevention grant programs, along with some other special assistance projects that we're hoping to be able to do this year. So we were able to request an additional $2 million, which allowed us to fund 89 of those 103 grants, totaling just under 6 million. Typically, we were only hitting about 4.5. So we were able to do an additional 1.5 million in grants this year, and we were super excited to be able to get that additional spending authority. Again, our justification was to just use the second half of the money that we weren't able to spend in 2020. So that worked again this year. No idea if we'll be able to do this again next year. We are hoping to get a conversation with our budget people to talk about potentially making it a permanent, slight increase in that funding authority if that's an option, because we are always oversubscribed for our grant program, and we want to be able to help as many, as many Ohioans as possible with this fund. I put a breakdown here. This isn't if you notice, if you do quick math, that's not 89, but just some quick highlights of what we saw. We did have 2 applications for the new curbside. That was a new category, the curbside contamination project. So we have 2 communities that are going to be using our toolkit to go through a contamination reduction project. We had 5 projects that were expanding existing curbside operations, and 4 projects for drop-off recycling projects, with 36 litter cleanup or tire amnesty event grants, which is great because litter is a big initiative for the governor, and we're hoping to really continue to clean up Ohio and do more with that. We had 4 MRF expansion projects. 20 of the grants were for recycling equipment. We had 3 scrap tire equipment grants, so for processing, and then 2 for engineering or paving projects. So that's kind of a quick breakdown of where all those projects fell. And the grant program never sleeps, so we are getting those grant agreements out. The projects for 2022, the activities can start on July 1st, and we're already looking forward to the 2023 cycle. So start thinking about what you might want to do for 2023. The application will open on November 7th. We will take applications up till February 3rd of 2023, and then do our grant draft review deadline through January 20th. So that's the option. If you want to send us a draft to review, we will give you some feedback. But we stopped taking those on January 20th in order to give us a week or two to get those comments out before the deadline. And then with the government sponsor grants, we give you an extra week on the deadline to get in your business documentation for those for-profit businesses. And then again, just a little over a year from now, we'll start the spending for the 2023 round. And one other thing I wanted to mention, this is a big initiative of Director Stevenson, is to get water bottle filling stations into schools in Ohio. And so we are going to add this to the grant program, to the online application for the 2023 cycle. But in order to hopefully get some in schools this summer, we are doing a paper application. So that's specifically to purchase and install water bottle refilling stations in public and private K through 12 schools. The funds can be used for the refilling stations and then any related outreach and education. We'd love for schools to put up signs that educate their students on the plastic bottle reduction that could happen if you just refill, a refillable bottle instead. Funding, because we're just kind of kicking it off, we are limiting that funding for $5,000 per school and then $10,000 per district. Part of the money that we got from the controlling board is going to this, but we don't have a ton of money in this first round. So we're going to kind of cap it. We don't want one school district coming in and taking all the money. So starting off this way, and then they get 12 months to do that, but we're anticipating a lot of those projects to be happening over the summer. It is a first come, first serve. There's no deadlines or anything. It's we are going to start marketing that right now, and then the funds will, we'll approve them and award them as they come in. Wanted to bring this up to you guys because I know you have, relationships with schools in your districts, and I would love for you to help promote this for us. If you would like to get some information to forward to some schools, to your local schools, this is our contact information. Marie Barnett is spearheading this initiative for us. This was her idea, and she did a great job getting this out quickly. So if you want to send an email to Marie, she can send you our marketing and fact sheets, and the application. Again, it is a paper application. This does not go through our online process yet. It will for next grant round. But if you send Marie an email, she can email you that marketing and that application if you want to share it with schools in your district. That's all I got.
Question. This is
Sure.
John here. April, I apologize. I was multitasking like Ernie was. But on the refillable water bottle stations, so money's available this year?
Yes.
And
Right
then
now.
there'll be official grant for 2023 for this as well?
Yes, yeah. So we didn't want to wait. Director Stevenson really wants to make this happen as soon as possible. So with that request for controlling board, we did, that $2 million that we asked for, we are carving out a little bit of that to do that this summer. So, for the funds, this would be so for current funding. So along with the grants that just went out, this is money that's available right now for the schools, and then it'll be as an eligible activity. It was always kind of eligible, but we're going to make a much bigger deal of it for the 2023 grant round. So right now it's this paper application, and then for next grant round, you will apply through the online application just like you would for any other recycling litter prevention grant.
Okay, and then one final question.
Mhm.
Does the school apply for this, or do they need our sponsorship or anything
Nope.
like that? Or
The school will apply directly. They reply directly to us, and unlike some of these other grants, we are requiring a match for this. It's 100% grant, and they will get the money up front. The whole idea is to get these installed as soon as possible, hopefully before the next school year. And we assume that we're not paying for any of the installation, so we assume that's kind of a match, is that they need to get these installed themselves. So yeah, I think Marie she just commented she can send you the information if you'd like. But yeah, we're hoping to spend all the money that we'd put aside with our fiscal year 2022 for this. Again, it's not a ton of money, but hoping to get some of these out. The director is so excited for this project. So yeah, we'd love any help that you can get spreading that word and getting these into schools for our kids.
okay, so it's 100% grant,
Mhm.
no match.
Correct.
Perfect, beautiful. All right, thank you.
Sure.
Are there any other questions for April? If not, thank you, April, for the update.
Sure. Thanks,
And,
everybody.
if I didn't tell people before and I started it a little late, but we are recording the meeting so that we can post the presentations later for people who were not able to attend. So I apologize for not letting you know that up front. Next on our agenda, we have Susan Vescovi, and I believe she has one of her coworkers, Julie Schiff, with her. They're from US EPA Region 5, and they're going to be giving us an update on a couple of the grant programs through their circular economy program. And she's US EPA is looking for some input from people in terms of implementing those grant programs. And so hopefully we can give Susan some good information. She presented at our MAC meeting and they gave her some input. So I hope that was useful too. So Susan, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks. Let me see, I will try sharing, let me see my presentation so we have something to work off of. How does that look okay for you guys? I'm assuming
Yep.
Yes. Okay, good. You never know how people are seeing it. So thanks for the introduction. And I'm sorry for those who are on the other meeting if you're having to listen to this again. But thanks for letting me speak about some of these grant opportunities we have coming up from the US EPA. They're the Solid Waste Infrastructure for Recycling grant program and the Consumer Recycling Education Outreach Program, which I think that name might be switching at some point, but one's focused more on the infrastructure end, and one's more on the education and outreach. So that's kind of just what you have to what to understand. And so I'm going to talk about those two programs today, give you kind of a little bit of an introduction, kind of some background and what's going to be what we're kind of looking forward to. And then if you will, if you're able to or have some something you'd like to say, we have some questions. So we're doing some outreach right now with our different stakeholders, possible applicants, other people that could be working with applicants, just to kind of get an idea on some of these elements of the grants that we have the opportunity to still kind of mold over the coming year. And this is going to be a 5-year grant program. So kind of even over the next 5 years, depending on what our stakeholders, you guys are able to kind of say about this. So that's what the focus is here. And like Ernie said, I have Julie Schilf. She's going to take a couple of notes for me as part of this. And so we're going to bring that information back to our headquarters office, like I said, to really help inform our program. So just a little bit of background. Last year, we released our national recycling strategy, actually part 1 of the national recycling strategy. That's this one looking at kind of the circular economy and how to get there. And the future, we're going to release some more materials focused strategies, but right now we have the circular economy strategy, and these are the objectives of the circular economy strategy. All these things, I think, are what we're all working towards: improving markets for recycled commodities, increasing collection, reducing contamination, creating better policies and programs to support circularity, and standardizing measurement and data collection. So within these grant programs, I think that's going to be the goal of these grant programs, to really address these objectives from our national recycling strategy into the infrastructure and in the education and outreach. So with that said, this is where we're going. These are the 2 grant programs that we are currently designing. We received funding under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, I think in December this past year. And since now they're fully funded, we have this is the SWIFR, just some background on the SWIFR grant program. It's meant to implement the plastic strategy under the Save Our Seas Act, which came out a couple of years ago but had no funding under it. The goal is to improve support improvements for local post-consumer materials management, including municipal recycling programs, and assist local waste management authorities in making improvements to local waste management systems. The overall funding is $275 million to be expended over 5 years. I think it's still being seen how we're going to spend that money, if it's going to be kind of in smaller grants, larger grants, smaller grants. We'll see how, it's not going to, I think, exactly be 55 a year. And we're still looking at competitive versus non-competitive, kind of what that situation would look like. But under this SWIFR program, states are eligible entities. So states like Ohio, and then tribes, DC, territories, and then any political subdivision of states. So I think under certain definitions of states or political subdivisions, that would include solid waste districts. So that's to note. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So I'm going to move on to the next one. So that's for infrastructure. The other opportunity coming out, hopefully later this fiscal year, is the Consumer Recycling Education and Outreach Program. Again, that might change in names, but it focuses on the education and outreach. This one's a little bit less, $75 million for 5 years. It's going to be a competitive grant program. It's meant to implement education and outreach activities. So what you would generally think of as education and outreach, education kind of programs like kind of physical outreach counts, like going door-to-door campaigns, different flyers, social media, anything you can think of under that vein, and then other anything else the administrator deems appropriate. There's a list in the legislation if you want to, but I think you probably understand what that would mean. And it's meant to improve residential and community recycling programs. So we have Swiffer that's open to states and subdivisions of states. This is same thing, states, subdivisions of states, and some additional entities, including nonprofits and public-private partnerships. So let me see what else. So just background for this again, some of the things that this program is meant to do is to inform the public about recycling programs, improve information about recycled material and what's accepted, and then increase collection and decrease contamination. So I think, again, all stuff we're really trying to do. So that said, both of these, we are expecting to release them in the fall this year. So that would be around the end of our fiscal year into early next year. That's around October, September. There's a lot of outreach opportunities now, kind of what we're doing here, but also headquarters is doing some more outreach activities, and there will be a lot of, I think, more webinars and information sessions to come in the future. But since we have this small group here and we have this opportunity for a discussion, I have a few questions, like I said, that we'd like to ask and see if you'd like to give some input on, so we can bring it back as we are making this grant program. Because really there's a couple of things. Thanks, Juliet. I have a whole list of websites at the end of this as well, so you can, after this, have access to those really easily. There's a couple of things in, I think, the legislation that are still kind of open for interpretation, and that we're still asking questions on: how to effectively address disadvantaged communities, how you measure success, or what's going to best demonstrate success for the grantees or programs that are affected by this money, and then also what's the most impactful things we could be funding. So I have a set of questions to lead us there, and I'm if you could identify, if you have something to say, if you could identify yourself, and I'd love to hear what you have to say on these topics. So for disadvantaged communities, I'm going to say, as we ask these questions, we haven't defined what a disadvantaged community is completely yet. I think we all generally as a community know what, kind of have a general sense, disadvantaged might mean. There's not access to all these programs. They might be historically disadvantaged, kind of just through different policies and practices, linguistically isolated, maybe different, socioeconomic backgrounds. Just in general, how do you support your how do you address your disadvantaged communities and making sure you're reaching them via your program or via your education and outreach program? And then kind of what are the challenges that you've had, or what have you been really successful with, is what we'd like to know. I will stop talking now because I tend to overtalk. Or I would also hear if you don't, or you feel like you don't have the ability to, and maybe why not, if you want to share that. I think some people we've talked about, especially in the Midwest, there's the issue of rural areas not having access because it's just a very difficult, it's difficult to provide access, in a financially, feasible, the financial feasibility of doing that's difficult. Or we've talked about in urban areas that certain communities are getting less attention and need more attention just by the nature of having so many people in one place. Oh, I see a hand raised. Elizabeth.
Thank you. Here in Ohio, we have 88 counties, 52 solid waste districts. We have some single county solid waste districts, some multi-county solid waste districts. But as a solid waste district, based on our geographic area, we are responsible for including in our solid waste plan, which is a process by which our plan is approved through obtaining votes from all of the political subdivisions within our jurisdiction. We have to get a majority vote for the activities we outline in our plan, inclusive of our largest political subdivision. And then the EPA has to approve that plan. So in our abilities to reach underserved communities, I would think the vehicle in Ohio would be through each district's implementation of their solid waste plan. We're closest to those needs and understanding of those needs. So I think if somehow, our state EPA could work with the districts in making funds available to the districts to funnel it that way, I think we probably have our fingers on the pulse of those needs, probably better than most. That's just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's interesting.
Hi, Susan and Julie. Thanks for joining us today. This is great. I think probably one of the most glaring differences in Ohio is the difference between the urbanized solid waste districts and the rural. And it's not explicitly that way, but there's definitely less infrastructure in the rural areas. It can be pretty glaring as far as the level of programming that is and education and stuff that's offered. So not that everybody has their own funding mechanisms, but sometimes in the rural, especially Appalachian areas, that they're really just focusing on providing infrastructure, and a lot of the higher level stuff is sort of secondary to what they need to do. So that's definitely one. I know at least one solid waste district is doing a DEI analysis of their programming. That would be Hamilton County, the Cincinnati area. So that's probably good to see what kind of results they get from that, and perhaps get in contact with Michelle Balls, who's on here, I think.
That's interesting. I actually wonder then what was the impetus for doing that, that DEI kind of outlook of that county. So I don't know. I saw Michelle too, so I know what a quality went out.
No, so we just that we should have that wrap up report soon. We have most of it, but we have one final piece to that our consultant is adding on. We just decided, because we were doing our solid waste plan update, that it would be a good time to look at our solid waste plan from a DEI perspective and see if there were any audiences we were missing, and we evaluated current programs and then also future programs, and also requested ways to measure, which is something that we've really been lacking in. We don't ask any DEI related questions of our participants of our programs, so that's something that we've added in. But really the impetus was just a desire from the staff to evaluate from that perspective. And I'm happy to share the results of that once we have it all together. It should be in the next month.
That's interesting. So also, I'm just like relating this to other groups that we've talked to. So then will you then use that? The plan is to use that evaluation to then provide more different type of service, or to enhance service, or what do you plan? What's your hope for it? Because it sounds like it's still like you're still getting the results.
Yeah, I mean, we really didn't know what would come out of it because we've never done anything like that. So what has come out of it is improvements to our current programs. So what we can do to make them more accessible, but then also process improvements. So when we do an outreach program, how we go about deciding what that outreach is going to be and who we engage before the outreach, and how we go about evaluating success of the program. All of those things the DEI outlook will come into play. And we also, as a side, had them evaluate our staff training and recommend kind of filling in the holes, because in the end, it's the staff who is developing the programs and going out in the community. And so we need to make sure that they are aware of all of the DEI issues as well.
Thanks. See, Daniel has raised his hand.
Yeah, I just thinking about that, you know, I think we're rural and we're part of the Appalachian area. And I think that by one measure, one definition, our probably entire county, our entire district is considered disadvantaged. But within our county, we have some communities that are far more disadvantaged than others. And, you know, having worked with those communities a lot, it occurs to me, we're all fighting this contamination issue. And my contamination issue tracks with my disadvantaged communities. So those are the ones that I have the absolute worst problem with contamination. So part of it, you know, is education and outreach, and part of it is infrastructure available. But as we try to fight the one issue of contamination, it's very easy for a solid waste district to kind of say to a community, look, if we can't clean this up, we're going to have to pull the, you know, the drop-off site or change the curbside program in your community. But unfortunately, if we started pulling the worst ones, we'd be pulling out of disadvantaged communities. So I don't know the kind of the nexus between this and the contamination issue, but there certainly is a correlation there for us. So.
Thanks. That's interesting. Yeah, it's like how to target that, help them clean up what they're doing, lest they lose their service altogether. That would be, and that's the you know, you don't want that. That's the opposite of what you want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there are some very good recyclers in those disadvantaged communities, but there's others that are using it for waste disposal. And so, you know, part of the issue comes into, you know, how their waste disposal is provided. So if they have access to, you know, traditional waste disposal, then there's less issues with contamination of our recycling programs, but then that becomes expensive for the community to you know, either mandate that or provide it or whatever.
All right. So I guess thank you for all those comments. That was it's a different. I love getting these different perspectives. I know that sounds. I'm the only one who knows everything that I've heard, so I'm glad to say that it's really been interesting hearing what everyone has to say on this. So the next question I have is kind of what data point are you or indicator are you using to measure success in relation to either your program? Because I guess I use recycling program as a general, you know, kind of just because I speak to so many different audiences. So for your program or kind of for on the education and outreach side. So I'm kind of attacking both Swiffer and the education and outreach. What is your measure of success, or kind of like what would be your ideal measure? Part of these grants are, you know, we're always going to have to be measuring what is success, and we want to make sure we're capturing it correctly for potential applicants or grantees, because you know, at the end, we want to see that the money is like done something good for the communities. So I think what would you say is your indicator, maybe besides tonnage increase, which is it's so difficult to probably already use as measure of success in some ways. What else would you count as an indicator of success, or would you like to kind of as part of this program?
So this is Michelle. I can hop in just to say what we have used for the recycling piece with the Recycling Partnership Ohio EPA grant. We did before and after audits, which was fantastic, but it was very expensive. So I think that is a great measure of success if you're willing to invest in that. For other campaigns, we have done partnered with the University of Cincinnati to do before and after surveys of awareness and then also action. So asking questions, and they're really good at crafting the questions, but asking questions about like, how aware are you of this issue? And then what have you changed in your behavior? So we can measure both awareness of the issue, but then also have they done anything to change?
And
Yeah,
Michelle,
this-
just so, oh, sorry. Just a quick, so when you say before and after surveys with the recycling partnership, I think I've seen this, where they've gone and done a survey at the MRF or something and like gone through the materials and see what's contaminated or what's random, like somebody tossed in a cooler sort of thing. Okay.
Right. It's
Yeah.
an audit, and that grant was specific around contamination. So that was a really good
Okay.
measure to look at.
Okay.
You know, was there improvement in the contamination?
Got it. Okay. Sorry, I cut someone off.
Go ahead. Somebody else has their hand raised. I'll raise my hand after this once I find it. I don't want to cut.
Sorry.
It's Jane Force Redfern from Athens Hawking. To answer the question prior and then also this, do not use the overall numbers, because urban centers will get the majority of the grants if you say we're going to reach 50,000 people or 1.5 million people. So you have to make sure that you look at data points or indicators that are per capita change or numbers of people that will be reached, but looking at the per capita number. Secondly, one thing you could do to ensure that disadvantaged communities are being reached through your program is you could designate a portion of the grant you're going to be given out to those communities. And, because a lot of times rural communities don't have grant writers. They don't have a whole lot of match. They don't, have the staff necessarily to be able to implement this grandiose thing that you all might want to do. So if you designate a portion, then you can compare those against each other and be able to see which models would you like to move forward. I just think that a lot of times urban communities, they have foundations, they have the funds to be able to match. Whereas, I have 2 foundations in my community and the biggest grant they give is like $2,000. And so in order to match, it would have to be coming from my district, of which we have a deficit. So, it's, if you want to measure, make sure that you take all of those things into consideration. And you can do that by designing the program to give them equal footing in those areas. If you truly want to deal with it that way.
Yeah, thank you.
Just an idea.
No, all that, I think that's all, coming up into, that's why we're asking, because you're right, like we represent such a different kind of area. The Midwest, we have a lot of rural and we have a lot of cities, but not, we want to make sure that's kind of taken into account for. I guess, John, I think you had your hand up for a second.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as far as, here, we have an environmental learning center, and we just developed a virtual tour due to COVID to be able to get that out. So one of the measuring tools that we use here are KPI standards. We've got a baseline of year over year what we've done. And then each and every year we take all the data that we collect from the various tours that we give here at the Environmental Learning Center. And just recently, the virtual tour, we have a web-based measuring tool that tells us, how many people came in and viewed, how long they stayed. If somebody's just on there for a minute and they hop off, we don't count those in our data points because really they're thought was probably something else that they were looking for or whatever, but so we have those tools that we've utilized, and it seems to provide us a great year-over-year measurement of, okay, here's what we've done to promote these particular activities. We've only seen a 1% increase in activity, therefore we need to do something different, so on and so forth. So we use our KPI to really kind of help us gear up for the next upcoming year as to where we're going to do a dollar spend or whatever.
Great, thanks. Ernie, I see your hands up.
Hi, yeah, I'm the taskmaster. Fortunately, we have plenty of time built into our agenda to go over on this topic since you're getting a lot of conversation. I think we have enough time that we can actually go till 11 and still get everybody in for the agenda. So as long as that's okay, Susan, and everybody on the meeting.
Okay, so all right. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so you said so I can go up until the hour.
I think so. Yeah, we should have
Okay, no
plenty of
problem.
time.
I could also hustle.
That's okay. I think we have plenty of time built in, so we should be okay.
All right. All right, then I will move to the next question anyway. So when it comes to infrastructure and recycling, kind of these big questions, what we might fund, what are the critical infrastructure and recycling needs or issues in your area, kind of, and what resources do you need to address those limitations? So this is, I don't know if this is a catch-all, kind of what are the bigger things that are missing, or you know, that these projects could, or sorry, these funds could eventually address. I know that's probably a huge question. That's like, you're like, I have millions of needs. What do you think, Susan?
Well, for Montgomery County, I mean, we're excited about the grant. Our big issue, what we're looking at is equipment or new building. We have a project that we are looking at for this grant. We're currently doing a feasibility study. We should have the report back by the end of the month on whether the project that we're proposing will work. It's basically mining materials from our transfer station, a little bit differently than some of the things that have been done in the past. So, but we are looking at that and actually putting a front end building to our transfer station so that everybody from the public side has to go through that building and reduce their waste stream before they go across our tipping scales. So if they come in with a mixed load and they've got tires and cardboard and yard waste, they will pass all of those opportunities first and have an opportunity to reduce their costs by going through that system first before they go into the transfer station. So we're kind of looking at what that's going to look like for us. That the equipment, you know, the ability to use the funds to help construct such a facility it will be helpful.
That's very interesting. That's very cool. I don't know if I have any questions about that. That's really interesting.
Hey, Matt Hiddle here again. Talking about the rural areas, I know the proximity to a processing facility or MRF is oftentimes an issue, and you know, looking to develop some sort of program, whether it be a transfer station for recyclables, essentially, to get them to market in a more efficient way would probably be what's looked at. And when you talk to people in those communities and talk about spending money on recycling, it seems a little crazy for them to have a lot of focus. It's hard for them to have a focus on that when they're dealing with things like poverty and drug addiction. And more importantly is possibly the dump cleanups. So one solution that's been implemented in one of our rural counties is to make certain they have like a unlicensed transfer station, at least a place for people to bring waste, because they may not even have the services, the door-to-door waste services. And then that was developed to be sort of a one-stop shop to also have recycling capacity there, whether it be a scrapyard as well as like a drop-off for recycling at that spot. So that's just, I know that doesn't necessarily fall into the scope of what the bill was thinking of when it was passed, but something to keep in mind and also looking at underserved communities.
So are you suggesting kind of making that, so kind of creating more transfer stations as a kind of the interim, kind of the connection between the waste and the recycling, or just for those places that just don't have it?
There's transfer stations for waste.
Yeah.
But there's also having consolidation point for the drop-offs, because currently, you know, the waste trucks have to travel miles to all these different drop-offs and then travel back to a place to bring it for processing, rather than having one singular point where everybody can bring their materials to have. There's a recycling transfer station in addition to the waste transfer that I mentioned.
Okay, thanks.
And to add to that as well, having MRFs, charms in rural areas are helpful too, because that way we can get a big enough capacity load in order to make a difference in shipping it off to the actually recycling recycler. You know, so what we're trying to do in our district is to do different satellites and see if we can build up the capacity at the satellite office then to then be able to have enough. But having a huge warehouse is just really challenging, because who pays for the overhead? And how can you in a rural area be able to pay the overhead and the programming in such a distant and spread out area? So it's a real challenge. So so not only MRFs, transfer stations, but also charms.
Yeah, and then including, I was thinking, well, if this could pay for something like that, you still have in the future cost of that same project. So that's it. I don't know, it seems like a challenge that even if this can pay for something like that, like some of those elements, then you still have like, what's the long-term funding structure, right?
Right, absolutely. And it would be great to be able to point to a model and say, okay, if you start a shredding business, pick up, if someone's moving their whole house or emptying their whole house, have a whole house business, scrap metal, tires, whatever, drop off. What's that magic formula for a rural community in order to make it work? And fixing things, and creating enterprises out of it and creating jobs. So trying to figure out how you could do it, whether it's the government operating it or a nonprofit or a for-profit, whichever way, trying to figure out what that magic formula is.
All right, I'm going to go to, let's see here, some specific questions about education and outreach. I'll go quickly over these next two because I know we're running out of time. What do you think is missing from recycling education in kind of like either your kind of physical geographic area or in the area kind of your work, where your work is? as a solid waste district. And if you have any specific examples of education outreach initiatives that you feel have been particularly successful in your kind of that you've been working with. And I think some of us may have already, this has already kind of been discussed maybe with some of the initiatives that we've talked about, kind of what John was talking about, kind of the education outreach at the recycling, I'm not going to get that right, at his organization, kind of some of the things Michelle mentioned about kind of using DEI to do more focused education, you know, potentially more education outreach. So I guess unless someone, I don't see anyone jumping at raising their hand, so I could also move to the final question. Just if there's any other critical points that you think we should consider in the context of these programs that we haven't talked about yet, and any other additional challenges you'd like to kind of point out or resources, you know, kind of this big overarching issue, what do we need to take into account as we're creating these programs? Brandy?
Hi, Lorraine County Solid Waste. So this kind of goes back to the point that was just made, and then this as well. One of the things that we kind of run into here with education and outreach is we have 3 different main haulers that operate within our district, and they don't all have the same rules. And that can be challenging. So, because I am the community outreach coordinator, so I go to the different school districts, I have to, you know, be careful. I have to make sure that I'm not giving different, you know, that I'm giving the correct information to the group that I'm at. And sometimes you've got schools where kids can be coming from different areas, even if they're all in the same school. So, some kind of a general, I don't know that that's even achievable, but to get to a place where we weren't changing messaging depending on where we are at would be so huge for me and probably all the other educators that are on here.
Yeah, that's something that's come up on a couple of conversations that I've had, like just what are some common things we could be pointing out on a regular basis? Like, please don't put plastic bags in your recycling. That was one that I thought was interesting. So kind of, but similar to what you're just saying. Consistent messaging where we can. And I saw some things about I see some different comments in the chat, which is great. We'll get that in the notes as well. Yeah, and this is, you know, this is also, these are the organics and batteries are other things that are part of, oh, interesting. Oh gosh, vape pens, always fun. Yeah, all that stuff has been coming up, I think, in different ways. We're doing some more battery focused work as well, but it's not as part of the bill fund, the infrastructure investment and jobs funding. There's also going to be some work on batteries, but that's going to be coming a little later. And organics is definitely something that's being talked about right now as well. So I will kind of wrap this up so we keep your meeting on schedule. So we're just taking all this, like I said, just to wrap up and summarize, we're taking all this kind of summarizing notes, looking for things, common themes, issues that we can incorporate into this program. And hopefully the grant program will be open by the end of this fiscal year. It always feels like we're kind of rushing against time. So stay tuned. If you want to get more updates about when these are coming out, or I know there were a couple other like larger listening sessions that just happened. And I think that there's gonna be a lot of outreach about how to apply for grants and all that. Please sign up at the Stay Connected form. Headquarters is often putting out newsletters and little news blasts, and that's been happening a lot lately. And also, so there were a couple listening sessions. I believe there might be one more upcoming listening session kind of similar to what we just did. So it shouldn't, you know, if you have the time and you want to join, that's great. But I think they're doing similar work to what we've done. And also there's some specific websites about the different programs, about education outreach, Swiffer, and the battery, I guess, battery labeling guidelines. That's the battery work that's happening. I'm a little less on, oh, thanks, Julie. Yeah, the 14th. So there, that's what I have. And I just want to say thank you guys for everybody sticking to it, having some great, really, I've enjoyed all these conversations, and I just learned a lot from everybody on these calls. So thanks, Ernie, for having us on, and Ohio EPA in general. You guys have been great partners. So I'll let you get back to your meeting.
Susan, I was just going to say, I don't know if you need to go on and leave to go get other stuff done, but if you want to stay on and you feel like there's still more discussion you'd like to have, if we have time at the end of the agenda, we can pick back up again.
I mean, everyone kind of seemed to be petering out, so I'll let you guys, if anybody, same thing, if anybody wants to contact me outside of this, I'm always willing to have a conversation. You know, you want to talk for a half hour, 15 minutes, I'll always chat. I've done that with some other people. If you have more to say or something comes to you, or if you have an email you want to write and you feel really, you know, you want to get that off your chest, go ahead and send it to me afterwards. No problem. I'll talk to people outside of the meeting as well. So but I think everyone is kind of done with my questions. So I'll just let you guys keep talking.
Perfect. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your input also for Susan. It's a big project they're trying to handle, and I think they've got a lot to think through. So I think comments are helpful. Hopefully it doesn't get too overwhelming, but we appreciate the input. So next up on the agenda, we have Erica Tucker from Fayette Highland Pickaway Ross, which we always say it the opposite way you do, Erica, just because we go alphabetically. So she has a regional drop-off in one of her counties that we've asked her to give us an update because it's kind of a unique thing for the state. So Erica, take it away.
Hi, thanks, Ernie. Yeah, I started before I came on the RPHF Solid Waste District. But yeah, that presentation with Susan, I hope she didn't jump off quite yet, but I just didn't want to jump in because I knew I was getting ready to talk about our Fayette County Recycling Center. A lot of really good points that Susan was bringing up was a lot of the reason why we started this project in 2018. We had talked about how you know, even then the fuel prices weren't really that high, but the main problem that we were running into was, like everyone else, the contamination issue, the trying to get someone to go out and clean up after someone had just dumped their whole apartment or house, you know, at one of our recycling sites. And being so rural of a district, Fayette is actually one of our smallest counties that we deal with. And so in 2018, we had decided to partner. That's a big thing of how we were able to handle all this too, is that the partnerships involved was amazing. Our county engineer's office there was a huge help to us, and we were able to, with the commissioners, get a 200 by 70 foot concrete pad poured. And the plan was to put all of our recycling bins on there, because where they were at close to this location was a lot of it was sitting in mud and muck, and people just didn't want to come over to this particular site. So we just got to talking, and we were like, well, what if it could be this, you know, what if we could put a gate around it, or a fence around it with a gate? And my Rumpke rep, that's who we deal with for all 4 of our counties, is Rumpke for recycling. And my Rumpke rep was telling me about a place down in West Virginia that had a gated facility membership base for their residents, and it was working out really well. So we went down and checked it out, and we came back and tweaked it to the way that we needed it. And then I called the IPA and asked, basically, can we just get this going? Can we do a pilot project with you guys? Because all of our drop-offs in this county, I mean, and others, was just not working out the best. And so trying to wrap all this up, because I know a lot of you have heard this and I feel like I've said it a million times, but it has gone amazing. We opened it up Earth Day 2021, and I didn't really do this on purpose. It kind of worked out this way, but we wanted to be able to present the numbers, present some information on how it's going. So Earth Day 2022, Rumpke and I got together and we driver brought all of the material from all 10 bins, clean truck, everything, brought it over to the transfer station in a city nearby. And myself, my assistant director, Lauren, and my Rumpke rep hand dug through all of that trash. And we ended up with about 2,800 pounds or 1.44 tons of material. And we picked out all of the trash because we were, hoping and praying that by looking at all this material that we have over that last year, that it was good material coming in. So we just assumed, we're just going to pick the trash out of it, as opposed to some other sites we'd probably be picking the recyclables out of the trash. But we came up with just at like 100 pounds of trash, 0.3%. So we were just so excited. I'm still so excited to be able to give that number. And, to going forward, we want to keep doing these audits, pick maybe a different day, just to show this is working for us. Rumpke had told us that the residual rate is anywhere like 15% and higher. So to come up with 0.03% was I was ecstatic. I don't really know what I was expecting, but I didn't expect it to be that low. And this, mind you, was on a Friday pickup. That site gets serviced 3 days a week. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we had gone with that Friday time, and I would like to do a Monday time just to see how it goes from over the weekend. But I know I'm forgetting something, but I was trying to hurry through this because, like I said, I know a lot of people has already heard about this recycling center. But it is, the residents have to sign up via membership. It's as soon as they pull in, type in their code, the cameras are on them essentially, so they know that. Something that Susan brought up about the education that I wanted to say is that it has been amazing being able to talk in person to the residents. It's made a huge difference, whereas maybe if you're at the schools trying to talk to the kids, then the kids go home and relay the information. Or even if you're at an event and you're talking to someone, you're only hitting a few of those, where every single person that is signed up for our recycling center, we have, 9 times out of 10, we're giving that information directly to them at that time. And they have questions, and they've been good questions. And I would say it's been 98% positive that we're doing this. You always get your naysayers, but yeah, it's been amazing. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to email me, or ask me now, but that's all I have.
Does anybody have questions for Erica? I appreciate you're doing it. Go ahead, Erica. What?
Oh, it looks like David said in the chat, is there any pre-training awareness steps for residents before they sign up? Yeah, so back to the one-on-one talks that we get to have with them, but we come up with a form basically that has all the information, has exactly what we want in those bins, our rules that, we had come up with, or we had sort of stole from the solid waste district down in West Virginia to help us. Like I said, they were a big help. I knew we didn't have to reinvent the wheel with what they had, but here in Ohio with how the rules are a little different, we just wanted to get all that out. So I hope that answered your question, David. And then Dawn, I see you just asked estimated cost. So yeah, you know, we started this in 2018 when prices for things were not astronomical. So for this particular project, I have about $87,000 was what this particular site was. I know, and I am planning another site. Actually, I just kind of got pre-approved to start that planning process for another county. But I know that I'm going to have to probably double that cost for this particular project. So, do I take batteries, electronics, brush and wood? So yes and no. At that particular site, we will do, with those residents, we do a appointment basis. They can call ahead and let us know if they have electronics. But we've always kind of had a tire and electronics collection event for each county every year. And I put my outreach specialist in charge of those events to get them scheduled. Fayette's always been one that we've had a great partnership with our soil and water. So they have been able to do our tire collection. And then the electronics portion of it, it's worked out that they just call us and that we have two Gaylord sitting at that center that we can, you know, then take, and it's under roof now. We had a little shipping container there and we just got our little shed building. So I call, Lauren and I call her a little she shed. So it's going to be really nice to have, because it actually has a spot where we can, you know, do some paperwork if we need to, but then still keep those boxes there to take in the electronics. The brush and wood, no. We actually are kind of lucky though, because right where we are is our transfer station for Fayette County. And I do know that they take some of that stuff. So maybe eventually.
We're working with Erica on doing kind of a case study of her drop-off. I apologize, Erica, we're not on that yet. We will get to it eventually. And also, you know, we've been trying to figure out with the access goal, like what needs to happen to it. And we're kind of hoping maybe this will provide us a basis to go on for how to think about changing that in the future, maybe making it more effective. So it's a kind of an interesting test for that as well. So thank you for providing it to us, Erica. We appreciate the information.
Thank you for letting me do it.
So next on the agenda, we're going to talk about styrofoam recycling. So, you know, it's one of those things that is a difficult material to try to recycle. And we have two solid waste districts, both Clark County and Montgomery County, who have some programs for that. So we've asked them to present. So Chuck, I had you on the agenda first, if you're ready to go on and present. And if you want me to run your presentation, just let me know.
Okay, Ernie. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I'm going to try to open a share tray and see if I can do this. Are you able to see that yet?
Yes.
Okay, let me make it full screen. Oh, no. Okay, so thanks for having Bonnie and I talk to you guys again today. We do have a recycling program. This is our map to show everyone where Clark County is, just to remind folks, and a little bit of information about our county. We have about 140,000 folks. We are starting to grow now, and which is fortunate. We're located between Dayton and Columbus in Central Ohio. 10 townships. We got 2 cities and 8 villages. We started a styrofoam recycling program at the end of 2019, which wasn't the greatest timing to try to bring out a new program. We got a grant, and Bonnie will talk about that here in a little bit, to purchase a machine to densify foam. And on this slide is kind of some of the initial program marketing that we put out at the start of 2020. We wanted to let folks know what we're after. So we kind of said, you know, we are going to start this program to recycle styrofoam packaging. you know, we wanted businesses and individuals in the community to know about it and how they could use it. So we reached out to businesses to encourage them to contact us to get the materials that they would, particularly like businesses that would have that type of styrofoam packaging around like office equipment places, if you can imagine them. Yeah. So that they would come in and have regular kind of loads of styrofoam to deal with within our community. We reached out to them. We made these cool styrofoam chairs. You can see this guy sitting on it as kind of promotional items. So if anybody needs some of those, we got a bunch of them. We're happy to send them out. We didn't charge for the program. We are only looking for rigid molded white pack foam packaging to go into the machine that we got. No food, no cups, no containers, no packaging peanuts. So that's kind of a quick rundown of the initial piece that we had as far as the program marketing that we had. Oops, excuse me. We have one public drop-off location. So we converted a recycling 12-yard commingled recycling bin and labeled it for public drop-off. You can see it there in front of our main building. And I will tell you, as soon as we set that out and put that on, I don't think we even advertised, and people started putting styrofoam in. And for the most part, they put the right stuff in. The bin is typically emptied once a week, sometimes twice. So that's what we're pulling it into that building and emptying it. That's where we have our foam densifier. And I already mentioned that we connected with businesses to try to do this bag change-out program. So if you can imagine a plastic bag that would fit inside a Gaylord, we were providing businesses with those plastic bags to collect their styrofoam in and bring it to this warehouse. And then we give them new bags and kind of change them out. So that was the concept behind the program. This is what it really looks like inside. So we're taking that bin or material that's coming in, we're emptying it out on the floor. You can see the foam densifier. We got a Recycle-Tech machine that basically you're putting that material in the mouth or the hopper that you see at the top. It's got a rotating mechanism that chews it up and then melts it and extrudes it out the end. And we made this form to kind of help us organize the densified material as it comes out. So it takes a fair amount of space to kind of handle the material. It's not heavy, but it, as everyone knows, it takes up volume. So here's some numbers, kind of what happened. So the equipment, we get this Recycle-Tech foam densifier. Cost a little over $40,000. Thank you, Ohio EPA gave us a grant to help purchase that. We had to do some electrical work inside the building, so another $5,500 to kind of work on that. So we have about $50,000 in the program for the equipment. The capacity of the equipment is 200 pounds of loose foam per hour, and we'll talk about this in a minute on the next slide. We actually went up a machine. My facility manager went up on capacity. We didn't know how much we were going to get in the program, of course, but he wanted, of course, all facility managers want bigger equipment. So I was a little skeptical, but we did go up a size, and I'm glad we did because we'll talk about that in a second. Operations. We usually have 2 staff folks, and it takes an hour or 2 of processing time per week to run the machine. And that's, that 12 to 24 cubic yards of loose foam is what we're handling. The first couple of years, we did a little over 4,000 pounds a year. We're selling that material to a company called Eco Development in Mason, Ohio. And it's at roughly 10 cents a pound is what we're getting back. So. Pros and cons. Yeah, so you can see the angry meme that we put out of that dog. So we do have people put the wrong stuff in the bin. That's a bit of an issue as you're sorting through it. So I'll start with the pros. The equipment, it's got a small footprint. It's easy startup, to use. It's been very reliable. We've had no maintenance to date, and it is really good at reducing volume. So it's got like a 90% reduction in volume. Some of the cons related to the equipment that we ended up buying was that one staff member could run the unit, but two is definitely better. So if you can imagine, you're feeding it at one end, and you still gotta work with what's coming out the other end of the machine and kind of get it organized. That could be a lot for one person to kind of run back and forth. This goes. It's not hard to overfeed the equipment. So as you're putting the styrofoam in, there's basically an amp meter on that equipment that is measuring how much electric's going in to operate it. And if you start overfeeding it, it beeps at you. And sometimes you're just sitting there waiting. One person can easily kind of overfeed it at the size of equipment that we got. Wet material, packaging material, we have that bin outside, and if it's really rainy, even though it's covered, water in the packaging or on the packaging can kind of slow the whole process down and cause a problem with how it's processed. Varying foam packaging densities cause problems with the machine. So it's set up for a particular kind of middle grade density of foam, and lighter stuff's okay. Denser stuff makes it kind of slow down. It cools off the machine. So you can kind of tell when you pick up a cooler lid versus, something else that's much lighter weight, but you got it all mixed up. So it's going in, and you just got to pay attention to it. Contamination, which is tape, labels, food containers, hidden stuff in coolers, can get in there and cause some trouble from time to time. And there is a startup time and a cool out or a run out time for the equipment. You got to turn it on, let it heat up. It takes a little bit of time, 15 minutes. You got to let it run out for 15 minutes. So that's all part of what we got going on. I think that's it. Bonnie, did I miss anything?
No, that's.
Hopefully, Ernie, you have any questions for us?
Yes, actually, Beth Biggins Raymer had asked what your shipping arrangements are to get the finished materials to market.
We haul it to the purchaser.
On a box truck.
On a box truck. I think they will arrange to come get it, but we just don't have enough skids for it to make sense for the transportation cost. So we're self-hauling.
Chuck, how far away is where you haul it to?
Mason, like between an hour and a half, maybe closer to an hour and a half one way.
Does anybody else have questions for Chuck or Bonnie? Well, thank you both for being on to give the presentation. We appreciate, we've been relying on you for presentations all over the place recently, so we always appreciate your willingness to do that.
Well, thanks for having us. We appreciate it.
So our second presentation is going to be from John Woodman, who's with the Montgomery County Solid Waste District. And John, I'll turn it over to you. Are you good sharing your screen?
I'm going to try to do it right here.
Chuck, can you quit sharing your screen? Thank you.
Okay, let's try it now.
Perfect.
Is it working?
Yep.
Okay, again, I don't know what other people are seeing, but okay. But thank you, Ernie. Good morning, everybody. Kind of follow along with what Chuck was talking about there. Tell you a little bit about what we've been doing here in Montgomery County over the last year and a half or so with styrofoam recycling. We became aware of the company Eco Development in Mason, probably mid 2020 or so is when I started talking with them. And they're obviously a processor. One of the things they do is process styrofoam or EPS packaging in their facility in Mason, which for us, it's about 45 minutes away. So relatively close to us, we now have a processor that can handle this material. So we got kind of excited and we started talking to them and some of our local communities. And we decided to start out by doing like one-day community collection events for styrofoam. This was a totally new concept for our county, for our area, for our region. You know, for our residents, it was something new. We were excited to offer them an outlet for a traditionally hard to recycle material. So what we did was start in January of 2021, and we basically, the way it's kind of planned out is we do quarterly collection, one-day quarterly collection events, and we kind of move them around the area to kind of geographically move them around the different communities to make them equally accessible to all of our residents and businesses. And really right from the start, because this was a new concept for our residents and businesses here to recycle styrofoam after all these years, we took the approach that yes, we want to collect the styrofoam and divert it, the material, and get it back into you know, the recycling process. But we really wanted to build awareness of this new concept and really look at the need. We thought there was a need out there because we get, like everybody else, you know, we get phone calls and questions. What can I do with my styrofoam? But we wanted to see it firsthand, just and actually put some numbers to it. And much like what Clark County's done, what Chuck was talking about there, our thoughts were to eventually grow this into some sort of permanent drop-off program here at our transfer station. So what we've done so far is, or let me back up just a second. Really, the keys for us is in the vein of building awareness is promotion and communication. We have a great PIO here in my department, public information officer. She's great with social media and just traditional media. We've gotten a lot of local community engagement, particularly a lot of grassroots community type engagement. So several of our communities have, I'm going to call them like green teams or environmental groups, and they're very interested and engaged in this. We work, our local park districts are very engaged in this. Going through neighborhood associations is a great way to promote things at the local level. And just one thing I've learned through this is you cannot have enough volunteer labor at these collection events. So the more we get a lot of really comes together to help kind of build that awareness and participation in the program. So like I said, we started in January, early January of 2021. We've held 5 one-day collection events since then up to date. We have 2 more on the books for 2022. And the intention is to continue the quarterly one-day events into 2023. At that point, I think John Menier talked a little bit about it earlier. We are undergoing some large capital projects here at the transfer station that should be completed by the end of 2020. And that will allow us to potentially have a permanent drop-off location here in one form or another for styrofoam. Some results, just, you know, at the 5 events, I will say this too, also in the vein of building awareness and assessing the needs that I talked about a little bit ago. We made a decision early on not to limit these programs because it's a very, very low minimal cost to the district to operate these collection events. We made a decision not to limit it to just Montgomery County residents. So we decided to draw from the entire region. We've gotten over 1,300 vehicles at the 5 events, ranging anywhere from about 175 vehicles up to 300 or 400 at one of them. And we've collected over 15,000 pounds of styrofoam. You know, Chuck showed some visuals of it there, and you can imagine how many pieces of styrofoam packaging we had to collect to get 15,000 pounds, but it's a lot. And I will say this too, we do some informal surveying of where people are coming from when they come to these events. And, you know, obviously most of it's from the immediate geographic area in the local communities, but we do get some people that travel pretty far to come to these events. I think the winner was at the last one. We did have a lady drive over from Columbus with a car full of styrofoam. So again, we're really seeing it's building momentum. We're seeing a lot more participation, and the weights are going up each time. And I really think that people are getting engaged and excited about the program. I always like to show this picture here. This on the left, you'll see pictures of 3 different vehicles. This was at the very first one we did in January of 21. We initially started out with the U-Haul, and it, again, this was brand new. We didn't really know what was going to happen, what we were getting into. So we started out with the U-Haul. We did have some local a large scout troop that was helping us out, and they had a smaller yellow box truck there, and then they also brought their school bus, it's a full-size school bus but modified for the scout troops. We filled all 3 of those vehicles front to back, floor to ceiling, with pieces of styrofoam in about 4 hours. We had more that came in too, so we had to kind of store it till we could empty these vehicles. But those 3 vehicles, when they went down, they took them down to Eco Development in Mason. They ran them through their densifier and processed the material into the polystyrene bricks. You can see that picture on the right is all that material fits on the 1 pallet. So that was about 1,200 pounds, they said, of that one. So, I know the numbers and I see it, but when you hear about the 90% volume reduction and things like that, it is amazing how much reduction you get from processing this material. We've gotten a lot better as we go along at running these events. Eco Development now brings a 53-foot semi-trailer to each event. We generally have no problem filling that semi-trailer. There's a picture of one of them that towards the end of the event there. And you just see I mentioned you can't have enough volunteers and people helping unload the vehicles. Styrofoam's not heavy. It's not a hazard in any other way like that. It's just bulky. It's cumbersome, and the more hands you have pulling that stuff out, because it comes in all shapes and sizes. So we've been very, very excited about the program, offering a brand new recycling program to our residents like this. We've gotten great participation, a lot of interest, really good support from our administration, our county commissioners, and the local council people are out there. Our commissioners have been at each one of these events. They're very interested and intrigued in it. So, and like I said, a lot of media coverage, a lot of positive media coverage. So again, it's something that we're excited to do. We look to build on that and grow it in the future. So with that, I'll just throw it out there for any questions, or that's where we're at.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your presenting to us on this. Oh, we do have a question for you. Hold on a minute. So Anne Fear Flag had asked, Anne, do you just want to unmute yourself and ask, or do you want me to read it for you?
It doesn't matter. Either
Okay.
one. I have questions about this in general. Because this eco development is obviously very close to Butler County and it's in Warren County. I just have questions about, I think the consumer has questions. They get this stuff and they're like, I know it's not good, but should it be recycled? It's perfectly, obviously it's safe to discard in a landfill. They're equipped to take it. So why support and encourage the costs for this programming, the transit involved, the environmental, downsides associated with transporting it and processing it requires energy, more energy. And what's the net benefit? These are questions I ask about all the stuff that gets recycled, honestly.
Yeah, no, those are great questions, and I can't really give you a number or answer that directly. But you're right. You can apply that to any kind of commodity or material. That'd probably be a question for eco development. I think they've done some studies like that on there. From the solid waste district standpoint, we're looking at it as another way for us to divert material from the landfill and return it back into return it back to commerce through recycling. But yeah, no.
Chuck and John, we have another question here, and the question is, would either of you take styrofoam from another county for a collection day?
We allow it at the events we've been doing. We get people from out of county will come in. We actually promoted a little bit in some of the surrounding, like Miami County. We were up in the northern part here last time, so we asked Miami County was nice enough to help us promote it, and several of their residents came down. So again, we're taking the approach now because there's a very minimal cost for us. Eco Development's doing all the transporting, and the labor loading it, and we get a lot of volunteers and stuff. That we just want to build awareness. We want people to know that this is a possibility now, that there is a company relatively close to us that can do this type of thing, and I'm just kind of build it from there.
Hey, Ernie, this is Chuck. Our bin's open to anyone from surrounding counties, and we've had people come, from surrounding counties to use our drop off. So we don't limit that at all. We may be open to helping do processing, but like our equipment isn't really sized to come in and try to process, a semi-trailer load of material like they would be ready to process at Eco Development. So it'd probably be better to work with somebody like that like they are in Montgomery County. So, and to kind of I think I had the same question regarding recycling styrofoam or this type of material that I can't remember who asked the question about the cost and overall economic kind of evaluation and environmental evaluation of it. And I think that you have to look at the volume reduction piece is kind of where I landed on it, that volume reduction, what's the value of that airspace in a landfill worth in 20 years, and I haven't done the math to try to come back and say, is this justified or not? But I mean, it's not unless you take that into account, is my take on it right now, because it is energy intensive. It is fairly labor intensive for us to do it. We just happen to be set up with a facility and labor that we're able to use. We're not hiring other people to do this. So we're able to leverage our existing staff and infrastructure to kind of put that program into place pretty easily.
If there's no other questions for Chuck or John, I will again say thank you for your presentations. And we're kind of at the end of our agenda. We had hoped to have another topic here towards the end of the agenda, but neither of the two that we were investigating panned out. So we have time open for if solid waste districts have any updates or anything they'd like to share with everybody. I'll just open up the floor to you. Feel free to unmute yourself and share with whatever you have to share.
This is Marcy in Summit. I would just let everybody know that we open our hazardous waste facility today for the first time, or for the 27th year, but we are adding vape, e-cigarettes, and embedded battery items to our list of acceptable materials. Unfortunately, the timing of this is not ideal as we do not have an education promotion specialist right now. So we're having an operations without the opportunity to promote it, but we're working on that. We had to go out to bid separately for the processing of this. We're looking at around $3.75 a pound for the embedded battery items and around 95 cents a pound for the vapes and e-cigarettes. So I'll make sure to keep everybody updated to see what we get in. We know there's a component of making awareness of this material, but we are trying to respond to the issue of the fires and trying to bring awareness of that and provide an opportunity. So stay tuned. I have about half of the story for you as of right now.
Marcy, in terms of the embedded battery items, is it kind of whatever has a battery in it can come to you? Like toothbrushes and anything like that?
So toothbrushes is what we're trying to look at right now. We want to stay away from electronics. We don't want computers. We don't want cell phones. We're looking at kids' toys. Interestingly, a lot of them can be removed, but just making people aware that they're throwing these things out and they have batteries in them. So we understand there's a component of that, but there's some things where the battery can't come out. So actually, we're going to take photos and weigh this material separately with the hopes that that'll help us actually understand what we're going to get. But we are trying to steer away from electronics. We don't want cell phones, laptops, those kind of things.
And then what happens to the stuff once it goes away from your facility? Does it just get destroyed?
Well, it's going to ERG, and part of what we also want to gather from them is how much of it is disposed of. We know there's going to be a plastic component that can't be recycled versus capturing the battery. So I guess this is just really good, interesting story, a cliffhanger for you all so that we can learn from this. But we hear loud and clear that these items are being thrown out and causing fires, and we are trying to be an option for a solution.
Very cool. Thank you, Marcy. Any other solid waste districts have an update they'd like to provide?
Hey, Ernie.
Yeah.
I don't know if you had plans to talk about retirements. But I know there are two longtime serving solid waste district coordinators that have retirement on the horizon very soon, I think within a month or two. That being, I don't know if they're on here or not, Rob Ryder, Southeast, and Carol Phillips with CFLP are both retiring. And Chet and I were trying to figure out who would be the senior coordinator to that. And I think Dan Wickerham might win that title after those two are gone, as who the longest serving coordinators are. So if you get a chance, maybe reach out to those people and wish them luck.
And I know Carol had sent us an email asking if we knew of any qualified applicants for her position. So if you know of anybody, send them down their way. All right, well, I know nobody is going to complain about getting done with a meeting a little bit early, so unless there's anything else people have to say, I will thank all of our presenters from today and let people go. So thank you for attending the meeting. I'll post the presentations and the recording to our website here shortly. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Have a lovely week.